Rolex's CPO program is offering the most expensive pre-owned Rolexes on the market. So it's kind of hard for many people to justify spending such a premium just because it's coming from Rolex. But it's a really kind of more complicated and interesting conversation than that. So we're talking about that and a whole bunch else in today's Q&A episode. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at ZBiotics. And we're going to answer a whole bunch of questions here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions that I went and plucked from the comment section in the videos. We have a different background here today. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, here on work. We're doing a bunch of work through our marketing firm, LMF, for the Kidney Cancer Association. Really exciting stuff. And that's it. So that's the new background just for today. First question, we'll do Rolex third, by the way. The first question was a good one from, I think, somewhat of a novice collector, which I think is, the roots of Theo and Harris, right? Theo and Harris started when I was just a novice kind of collector. It's kind of funny to be speaking about watches as an authority online when I was brand new to the space, but that's kind of what made it so interesting. But anyway, I love engaging with new people to the space. And the question is, what are the best watches going into winter? And it's kind of a tricky question because, I don't necessarily believe in the seasonality of watches. I don't think you need to have watches for different seasons. And I don't necessarily think that that's not necessary. It's maybe a little bit of absurd to even, as a concept. But backing up a little bit away from, the temptation of just sounding ridiculous and materialist, I can understand that there are some logic trains here that would make a Nautilus more of a summer watch than a Christmas time watch, and a Patek Philippe Reference 96 Calatrava more of a Christmas watch, or a Hanukkah watch, or a Kwanzaa watch, or whatever, than a 4th of July watch, right? We can see that these, two things do live at opposite poles. And there are a couple of notes here. Number one, stainless steel bracelets or bracelets, just as a class, belong more in the summertime. Bracelets and rubber, they're just more comfortable. You don't ruin them with your sweat in the summer, right? So the winter represents a good opportunity to break out the, by definition, delicate straps, the alligators, the calves. Of course, straps have gotten better and better and better over the last, 100 years. They're more resilient to, exposure to water and sweat. That's true if you're buying a high quality strap, but still, some of these older vintage watches, frankly, even, any watch that comes on leather, in the winter is just so much more comfortable. You're not sweating unless you're eating a big fat steak meal, and then I am sweating. But otherwise, it's a good opportunity. So for me, my recommendation going into fall and winter, we're going into winter rather, we're in fall. Wear those watches that would be uncomfortable, irresponsible to wear in the summertime. Wear your grandpa's watch that came on a leather strap that you just wouldn't throw on when you're, maybe going in the pool or maybe going outside and it's going to be super hot and humid, right? If you are a vintage watch collector, take a look at, like I said, vintage Patek Philippe, vintage Vacheron Constantin. It's classic, it's old school, it's grandpa-ish. And for me, the winter is a very grandpa season. The summer is what everyone, is young and, drinking and hanging out and being cool and wishing you had 6-packs, even though it's never going to happen. The winter is more of a, sweater, and, a nice, depressing Christmas song and a, crossed legs in your, leather clad space and your cigar, and you're kind of contemplating life and wearing a vintage Patek Philippe or whatever. It could be any brand, really. Omega, it could be so many brands. Tissot. So as a class, that's what I say. Second question here before we get into Rolex is on my favorite restaurant in New York City. Totally apropos of the time of year. There are many restaurants in New York City that I love. I've had so many good experiences. I've had a million terrible experiences in Manhattan, and those terrible experiences have usually been at the most expensive and exclusive restaurants, but that's, just the nature of the beast. My favorite restaurant in New York City, I believe, is Minetta Tavern. I love it. You can always get a reservation. The food is terrific. The cocktails are great. The staff is so friendly. The decor is old world. It's New York. The bar is even more fun than a table, but the tables are great and they're tight and they're cozy. Going to Minetta Tavern in the winter, or any time of year, but in the winter specifically, is like a hug. It's about as close to a hug as you're going to get. I know that the Polo Bar is a similar thing. It's also impossible to get a table. And I'm just not a line guy. That's why I don't go and try to get a Rolex and argue with people over moon swatches. And at the time, I'm just not, I really like good service. And when I walk into a restaurant, I want to be greeted by someone that's nice and happy that I'm there. And yeah, I'll pay a little bit too much for a cocktail, but that's kind of everywhere. But if I'm going to do that, I'd like it to come from someone that's just really glad that I'm there, and that's what Netta Tavern feels like for me. Black Label Burger is great. They say don't get it with any cheese, but it's really good with cheese. It's a little bit sacrilege, but I do recommend you do it. Get that at Manhattan. The bartenders are always great. You'll have a blast. Bone marrow too, really, really good. Going into the Rolex question, is the CPO Rolex collection worth it? It's a great question, very complicated, because the simple answer is no, that's ridiculous. You can get an equally authentic Hulk from a gray market dealer for $2,000 less or $3,000 less than you can get it from a Rolex CPO. That's true. That's true. You can also do the same thing if you want to buy an Audi. You could go to Audi and get a CPO, or you could go on Facebook Marketplace and buy an Audi. That's not something that people want to do. So we are aware of this sort of dynamic in the car space, but we're not really aware of it in the watch space because it's kind of an immature space. And it's only now kind of evolving and becoming more, corporatized and organized on a pre-owned level. The car market, the car companies have acknowledged the existence of the pre-owned industry, pre-owned, sector, and acted accordingly and worked within it and made it make sense for a long time now. This is not new in that industry. But in watches, these brands were so reluctant to touch this stuff for years, apart from, of course, on service level where they can hit you over the head on cost. But they didn't want to touch the actual retail market, and it made no sense to me. But of course, if a brand is going to stand behind a product, an actual brand, of course they're going to come at a premium. So I have no problem with the Rolex Premium because it's coming with a level of not just security, and it is far more secure, but service. You walk into a Rolex boutique and you buy a CPO Rolex, you're going to get a great experience. Not only are you not going to get robbed, you're going to get an amazing experience. Just pick a vintage watch dealer out of a hat. Well, what are the odds you're going to find a great one, right? I mean, probably have to research a ton because the average vintage watch dealer, just like, the average car dealer, just someone you don't know, and you're just kind of seeing online, that's kind of a risk. And there are a million incredible dealers out there. And many of you who are really, really into this have your dealers of choice that you know and love, whether it's me or somebody else. We just sat down with Carl Cohen, who's an amazing dealer and friend of mine. It's not that we're saying there aren't great dealers out there. We actually just did a conversation with him here on YouTube where he answered a bunch of interesting questions, I think, about watches, including some of the best investments in Patek and Rolex, by the way, on YouTube. But we also did another episode on the Zero, which is our private podcast community, where he showed off some of the most incredible stuff that he's got in his inventory right now. It's just wild, right? So I'm not trying to say that there's not a great reason to buy from dealers. I'm just saying, at scale, the average consumer is going to be more comfortable, right, taking advantage of this new opportunity to buy directly from the source. Right? The king themselves. There's something to be said about that. With fakes getting better and better by the year, if you guys know me, I don't buy Rolexes from individuals anymore. I only buy from a dealer I know and love and trust because it's too scary out there. The super clones are insane. The quality is wild and it's just too risky. And I have a feeling at some point at scale, I'll get burned for $10, $15, $20, $30,000. Happens all the time. I've seen fake Pateks. I saw a fake Patek Celestial last week. Unbelievable. It would fool anybody. Solid gold, diamonds, everything. The movement was real. Everything looks right unless you are a genius and know the difference between the clarity of the diamond, which, by the way, wasn't even that far off. It's too scary. I get that aspect of it. Now, my big criticism of the Rolex CPO business, at least a while ago, before I was educated otherwise, because there wasn't very much information on the subject not that long ago. But the big difference is we thought that Rolex was going to be scrapping, right, all kind of vintage worn, right, elements, a patinated dial, a patinated bezel, a GMT that maybe went light blue as opposed to bright blue, a fuchsia as opposed to red on the Pepsi. Nope. Rolex has total tolerance for all of that. And that is a big surprise. People did not think that at all. People thought that Rolex was just going to basically kill the soul of all of these amazing vintage watches because that's what they had done at service many years ago. Not the case. So long as Rolex thinks that they can stand behind the quality of the watch, they want it to be as original as possible. That's amazing. No one saw that coming. Nobody. And that took a big change of heart, I think, on a corporate level from this just Goliath of a brand. I really, really respect it. Of course, I've been buying and selling, pre-owned or vintage Rolexes for years. So what are the odds that I'm going to be walking into a Rolex CPO and buying one myself tomorrow? Not that high. I've also put in my whatever 1,000 hours, right? As the average consumer? No, because it's not their job. They're a hobbyist. They're a consumer. It's been my job for a long time to learn enough to be able to buy on my own. So I can't talk about my consumer journey. It's not representative of the world at all. I can absolutely see why the average person would feel much more comfortable going over to Rolex and buying a Rolex. I remember being a kid and driving past, when we drive past a car dealership we didn't know, my dad would look, maybe he was right, maybe he was wrong, but I know it's general consumer behavior. And he would see like an expensive, like Mercedes, and he would say, that came from out of state, and I bet you it's got water damage. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not, right? Maybe that's a ridiculous statement, I don't even know. But the point he was making was, the fact that it's that much cheaper than the dealer's offering it for says something about that car, right? If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And it's not worth the risk. And I don't mean just this once, but at scale. It's not just for you that one time. Maybe you get lucky. But if 100 people do that same thing, how many, it's Russian roulette, right? It's deer hunter, right? It's at some point, someone's getting hurt. And that's the truth. So that's how I feel about Rolex CPO. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at ZBiotics. Let's face it, there are a million diets out there, but there isn't a single diet that's that well balanced, and ZBiotics is attacking that issue. Either we're eating too much of this or not eating enough of that. That's why we started to use sugar to fiber probiotic mix every day. Built by PhD microbiologists at ZBiotics, sugar to fiber converts some of that extra sugar from the food you eat into a beneficial prebiotic fiber. Here's how it works. Sugar to fiber produces an enzyme called levain-sucrase to break down sugar into its molecular building blocks, then stacks those building blocks together to make fiber. And by drinking sugar to fiber every day, your microbiome gets more of what it needs and less of what it doesn't, leading to a more balanced microbiome, the key to a healthy gut. When I started taking ZBiotics sugar to fiber, I actually didn't change anything else about what I was doing in my life. I just added it to my routine, be it through, you could do it through a smoothie, but I do coffee and water. That was it. It was super easy, and I know that it was improving my overall gut health, which frankly, not to get too graphic, but not so great, historically speaking. And now I think I'm on the right track. So I'm glad to be introducing the product to you. It's their newest product, obviously beside the famous ZBiotic pre-alcohol probiotic, which you guys know I love. So head on over to zbiotics.com/Theo and Harris to get 15% off your first order. And if you don't love it, which you will, there's 100% money back guarantee. Head on over to ZBiotics. Next question. When do you know it's time to service a watch? It's tough. If anything starts malfunctioning, done, of course, period. If a hand is dragging, if the time isn't correct, if you hear something rattling, if you go to wind a watch and it feels different, you don't even need to have an extensive vocabulary to know when something just doesn't feel right, right? If something doesn't feel right, send it in. Watches are far more affordable to maintain than cars, keeping within that same world of conversation. People hate sending their watch in for service because it costs $500 or $700 or $1,000. So far as luxury hobbies go, ladies and gentlemen, watches, not bad. You run into a problem with a car of equal prestige, you're going for way more money. Watches are actually then you factor in the fact that watches don't depreciate the same way cars do. Watches are like kind of an easy thing to get really, really into without getting hurt. So that's the answer. Second, every 5-7 years, definitely just invest the money, get your watch serviced, get it maintained. If you average out the cost of ownership over a lifetime, it's $135 a year. Come on. It's just not bad. $140 a year. It's not bad. So I say service even more often than you need to. Don't throw money away, but service even more often than you need to, because it's definitely better than waiting too long. Next question. Do you have any watch recommendations for under $1,000 for Christmas? Great question. And I'll start off by saying, when people ask me for watch advice and like what watches that they should be buying even themselves, or even more specifically a gift, I always say the same thing. Like, just because your budget is $1,000 at a ceiling doesn't mean you spend $1,000. You get that $600, $500. Or I want you to get the best watch that fits the end user best. So I don't think this is about recommending a brand so much as it is about recommending a process, right? Think about this person. What do they do for work? What do they wear, right? Are they expressing themselves in their clothing and in their choice of car and all these things as someone that's more old manny, or someone that's more kind of young and youthful and, trendy or chic or whatever, right? Like what does this person look like in the rest of their life? What does their home look like? Right? You can, I can recommend you a great watch that doesn't fit that person. And then what good is the watch, right? I mean, generally speaking, someone's not going to buy me a Zodiac Seawolf, even though I think that the Zodiac Seawolf is a fantastic watch. I love the Zodiac Seawolf. It's great. And they may have heard me on a YouTube video say, I know that you love the color and it's a great, modern, affordable dive watch. That's true, 100%. It's just not a watch that I'd recommend for me. My dad would actually love that, right? Not to say it's under $1,000 always, because I don't think it is. But, and this isn't a plug. I mean, it is a plug by nature, but not because I'm being paid. Worn and Wound. Go over to Worn and Wound, go into their shop, organized by under $1,000, and pick out something that you think resonates with that person or will resonate with that person in their personal style. The Worn and Wound company has done such a great job. We have no corporate affiliation. I run into the guys every once in a while. I don't even know if they know I give them credit, but I do all the time. They have the best shop for, affordable, neat, new watches, period, end, right? And you can scroll and scroll and scroll, and they have literally hundreds of SKUs. And I really recommend it. I really recommend it for both, kind of dressy, but then also for like sport, like Marathon's a great brand that I always recommend. They've got so many brands that I think that are really great. Veer is a great brand. They've got so many brands that I think are awesome. And don't go up to the max of your budget if you don't have to. The thought counts over it's not only the thought that counts. The money kind of counts too. Of course it does. But after a certain point, the thought really counts. The consideration that you put into, will this person actually enjoy this? Does this gift demonstrate that I listen? Good question, And if you don't want to spend money, like watch money, get them an amazing watch book, for $100 or for $150, which is still an expensive gift, but way less than a watch. You can get some amazing watch books, Cartier books, not only like new books, like the Cartier book, but you can even go on eBay and like look up some, historical books, watch catalogs, right? From auctions. A watch lover would love if you went and got them 4 or 5 catalogs from crazy cool auctions, from Sotheby's, from Christie's, from Phillips. That's a really thoughtful and affordable gift. You're going to spend somewhere between $5 and $20 per catalog, on a lot of this stuff. You put together 10 of them or 5 of them or 10 of them, and you give them to somebody like, hey, I thought you'd really enjoy this. They're going to think that they'll marry you right then and there. I was doing boyfriend, girlfriend in my head. And then I'm realizing that many of this is for niece and nephew, and you wouldn't want to marry your niece or your nephew. That'd be bizarre, right? I'm going to stop talking now. Favorite watch in the Theo and Harris shop right now. The French watch, I get made fun of every time I mispronounce it. Chalmet, I don't know. But Parisian jeweler with these amazing, quote unquote, disco volante cases, power reserve, eggshell dial with blue accentation, 18 karat yellow gold, elongated crown. Automatic movement, sapphire case back, original strap, original buckle. It's gorgeous. That is pure class. But we've got a couple of other ones hitting the shop now. One Van Cleef & Arpels watch that is just mind-blowing. Rolex, Tiffany, Datejust, that's phenomenal. Those watches have skyrocketed in value, and they just continue to go up. It's crazy. We're all going to see a time when Tiffany, they're already kind of unaffordable, but we're going to see a time where they're just totally, I think they still can 2-3x, and maybe at that point there's no value in them at all. And I think that's probably true. We're probably already there on a lot of these pieces. How much are we going to pay for a couple letters of print? How much do we pay for the Rolex name? It's a good question too. I don't know. So anyway, great episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Glad to see you all. Hope you have a beautiful day. And that's it.